Allow me to congratulate PAD for organizing this event today in the evening. When I looked at the subject, efficacy of parliamentary system of government, is it time for a relook? The first thought which came to my mind was that, are we trying to fix something which is not broken? And the reason why I say that is because while we can have a very thought-provoking, esoteric debate around the issue, the fact remains that as far back as 1973, the Supreme Court in Keshavanand Bharati's case held parliamentary democracy to be a basic feature of the Constitution. So therefore, given the huge majority by which that judgment was delivered, and it continues to hold the field today, even if we were to come to the conclusion that we have a system which is not working and therefore needs to be re-looked at, constitutionally is it possible to do it? And the answer straight off the bat is no. Subsequently, when the NDA was in office, they appointed a commission to review the Constitution, which was headed by the most eminent Chief Justice of India, former Chief Justice Venkatacharya. They also, looked at the entire issue about the working of the Constitution, between 1950 and 1998 to 99 as to when it was appointed. And they came to the conclusion that there was nothing wrong with the Constitution. There was something fundamentally wrong with the people who are working the Constitution. So, that is where we are. Now, having said that, the situation as Dr. Chandan Mitra outlined, and I know that this is a subject which is extremely dear to Rudy's heart, that has the parliamentary system or has the Westminster model delivered to the people what the people expected and what the system had been designed to sort of deliver over the past 60 years? And the answer clearly is again a no, because if the Westminster model would have matched up to the aspirations of the people, we wouldn't have had such a whole cynical bunch, who feel that politics and politicians, is something which needs to be possibly wrapped up all together and thrown into the Bay of Bengal or a nearer lake if you can possibly find it. So what really has gone wrong? And how do we try and find a modus vivendi whereby within the confines of the constitutional arrangement as it stands, we are able to make the system, or we are able to make governance more efficacious so that it measures up to the expectations and aspirations of the people? One experiment was tried and which has worked very well over the years, and that was the Panchayati Raj, the 73rd and the 74th Amendment of the Constitution, which gave a constitutional status to institutions of local self-government, the panchayats, the Zilla Parishads, the municipal corporations in the urban areas. What it has done is that it has definitely taken democracy closer to people, because you had a 2-decade hiatus in this country when the only democratic representatives that people could access were the 750 odd members of parliament and about 5,500 odd legislators if you put all the 30 states together, the union territories and the states together. The 73rd and 74th Amendment, definitely helped in not only taking democracy closer to the people, but it drew in diverse streams. I know there would be views for and against reservation in this room, and especially when you speak to an audience which believes in merit, there is always a strong argument against it. But on the ground, possibly affirmative action is the way forward in order to draw in the marginalized, in order to draw in those who, given the manner in which parliamentary democracy is constituted and its dynamics would never be able to find a voice or would never be able to find a representation. So therefore, despite all the fixes that we have attempted, why does there continue to be a level of cynicism? Why does there continue to be a level of disengagement, among the people at large? And I think the answer is not really, or the problem is not really your political system. The problem is that you have a completely colonial administrative system and structure which is trying to run the political establishment or the governance machine of India. Now, if you look at India in a perspective, 120 crore people, out of them, for at least 100 crores, the face of the Indian state which they see is possibly the Patwari, at best the Kanugo or the Tehsildar, and on the law and order side, they would possibly come across a Havaldar or an ASI. And to be very honest with you, that is not the most friendly face of the Indian state which people see. So therefore, there is a tendency to treat the state as an aggressor. And if you unfortunately happen to live in the Naxalite affected areas or the Maoist affected areas, then the only face of the Indian state that you see is an olive green or khaki carrying a gun, which is definitely not the most pleasant face to see. So I guess fundamentally what this country needs to focus upon is getting this colonial antiquated system of governance, our administrative system, reformed. Because till the time you do not have an administrative system which is able to, which is dynamic, which is mobile, which is able to reach out to the people, which draws in experts from a wide array of not only education but of society, I guess even if you were to, let's say, junk, hypothetically speaking, the Westminster system of government and move to a presidential form of government, I don't think anything will really get resolved. And one of the classical examples of that is, look at the entire RTI movement. The UPA government brought in the Right to Information Act. It has empowered people. It cracked the opaque skull of the administrative system that I spoke about. But it has unleashed a deluge whereby the entire system of governance is overwhelmed and is not able to cope up with the energies which the whole RTI movement has unleashed. So therefore, I think if we were to really look at what is bedeviling the Indian state, with no brief for politicians or the political establishment, I think it's really our inability to get the fruits of governance across to people, which is the real trouble. And the classical example of that is PDS. Now, you have this whole debate in this country taking place around the Food Security Bill. And one of the fundamental arguments which comes against the Food Security Bill is that the last mile linkages are unfortunately still not in place. When the product leaves the confines of the last governmental stop and before it reaches the people, it disappears somewhere in between. So how do you get that last mile linkage into place whereby you are able to deliver? But having said that, there is this larger question of electoral reform which Rudy and I agitated over some time back at a similar deliberation in the Observer Research Foundation. And one of the solutions which both of us coincidentally came to a conclusion which is very rare, to say the least, is that possibly there is a need to insulate the legislative system from the executive. Now, within the confines of our constitutional structure, would we be able to do that? I do not know, because the basic structure doctrine holds the ground. But as long as you have the kind of money which goes into the electoral system and you have the linkage to the executive, with all the noble efforts of the Election Commission to try and cleanse it up, frankly, on the ground it comes to a naught. And anybody who's contested an election, and there are, I think, 3 of us on this panel, and Chandan has observed it very closely over the years, knows that, with all the sanctimonious homilies that we may deliver out here, it really means, nothing on the ground. So therefore, if you either we tackle the whole issue of electoral finance reform, campaign finance reform, honestly and in its entirety. And if we find that we are unable to do that because no country in the world, has really succeeded in coming to grips with electoral finance reform, then possibly, one way of looking at it is, can we have a system whereby we can actually divorce the legislature from the executive? What would that mean? It would mean that you'll have a legislature which possibly would be able to provide a more robust oversight. And since I think I've overshot my time, I would just pause here. Thank you very much.